Hi, I'm Tash. Welcome to Tash's Library. Today's video is going to be the All the Feels tag. I first saw this tag done by Elliot Brooks and absolutely loved it, and I thought I'd give it a go. The first prompt is a book series that makes you smile. And for this one, it would have to be The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is just such a charming, heartwarming book. I mean, some people may find it a little too sweet, but I just loved it. It was exactly what I needed at the time. It made me smile throughout. And basically it follows a caseworker called Linus who basically gets asked by the department in charge of magical youth to go and investigate this particular orphanage near the ocean. And this orphanage is run by a man called Arthur, and he is really trying to keep all these really misfit kids safe, useless kids in their found family. And it's about accepting people's differences and accepting yourself and accepting that whilst you may have limitations, you can dream big. And I love that. And it has a really heartwarming love story in it. And it's just charming. Like if you're looking for something really heavy, or you're looking for something super adventurous and highly plot driven, then maybe this isn't the book for you. But if you want something that just sort of warms your heart and you can really delve into the characters and you just want to feel good, then The House in the Cerulean Sea is for you. And the second prompt is a book or series that fills you with rage. And for me, this would have to be Nemesis Games, which is the fifth novel in the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey. And I really love the first four Expanse books, and I actually did like Nemesis Games as well. And I'm wary about giving too much information here because obviously Nemesis Games is a massive spoiler for the rest of the series. But the first book, Leviathan Wakes, basically follows a group of water haulers who get called in to help a ship that is stranded out in space. And bad things happen, bad things ensue, and you just have this really interesting sort of mystery and adventure. And it is classic sci-fi space opera, and it's all about, politics and the philosophy of what being human is, and and the things that divide us, the things that bring us together. It is about the exploring the unknown. It is about choosing your alliances, and it's about loyalty and disloyalty, and it's in an incredible series. But Nemesis Games has something very bad happen in it. And if you know, it shocked me. Like it was, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened in this book. And there's a particular character who is the mastermind behind this particularly bad happening. And I hate him. I hate him so much that I was actually getting angry reading this book. I cannot stand this character. And he's obviously meant to be like that, but he's the most detestable character that I've ever read in the sci-fi book, really. And yeah, that fills me with enormous rage. But having said that, reread the series. It's good. It's good. And the third prompt is a book that brought tears to your eyes. Now, I don't cry when I read. Like it takes a lot for me to cry when I read. I think I'm able to separate myself from the story a little bit more than I do with, say, a film where I'll just cry unashamedly. But that's what I actually quite like about books, is I can feel the feels, but I don't cry. And having said that, there was one book this year that did bring a tear to my eye, and that was The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. And this is the third book in the Winter Night trilogy, which follows a young girl in medieval Russia who is kind of torn between wanting her independence, but then she's stuck in this world where her only options are to get married or join a convent. And she really doesn't want either of those for herself. She is quite an independent spirit, and she has certain powers, and just exploring her development through these books is amazing. Some of the side characters are amazing. There's an amazing, like such a cute animal companion that is just, it's heartwarming. But there are some full-on moments in this series, and The Winter of the Witch made me laugh out loud, but it also made me cry, and it made me cry tears of happiness in places, and other times I got quite teary just because I was so shocked at what happened, and I was a little bit sad. So it's got all of it, like, you know, sad and happy tears. So yeah, that is my response to that prompt. 4 is a book that keeps you laughing. This was hard because I've got quite a few. I have to say that I have laughed out loud at the Caiaphas Cain series by Sandy Mitchell. So this begins with For the Emperor, and it follows the commissar in the 41st millennium, and he is leading a group of troops against hostiles on various planets. And there is quite a lot of violence in this, but it's very funny at times because he gives us his perspective in the novels, and he basically tries to explain how he's trying to escape danger at every point that he can. And so whenever they're facing an enemy, he's going to try and pick the place on the battlefield that is less likely to see action. But just with his bad luck, that happens to be exactly where all the action happens, and this leads him to become an unwilling hero. Interestingly enough, though, I'm not sure if he's a very reliable narrator when it comes to this, and he might just be a very humble hero. I do not know. But it's hilarious because you've got all those misunderstandings where everyone is saying to him, "Oh, wow, you're so heroic. I can't believe you put yourself into harm's way." And he's like, yeah, I did, yeah. But yet you're getting his point of view of like, oh, I was actually trying to run away. But anyway, I'll have to take the glory. And there's some very funny parts in it. The footnotes are gold because it sort of shines light on some of the discrepancies and fills in a few of the gaps in funny ways. So that's definitely one book that has made me laugh. But then I really can't respond to this prompt without making some mention of Terry Pratchett's. I love Terry Pratchett books. I have to reread them soon. I read them years ago, and so many of them are so good. And the whole Death series, Death is one of my favorite characters. He is so funny. And I know that sounds really weird, but he brings a lot of humor into all his scenes. Other ones are the Guards series, so starting of Guards, and you got some great characters there, and once again, hilarity ensues. And there's also the Witches series, which I particularly like, and that's particularly Equal Rights. I found Equal Rights hilarious. Granny Weatherwax is hilarious, and there's a lot of standalones within Terry Pratchett's Discworld as well. So Small Gods would get an honorable mention here. A very funny book. So yes, I had to mention those because they have made me laugh out loud. And prompt number 5 is a book that makes you green with envy. And from what I've seen from this tag, it could be something that a character has that you would love to have, whether it be a power or a particular situation or anything like that. But I've had to come up with 2 ways to answer this question. So the first one is I am a bit envious of the Lord of the Rings in general because I would love to visit Rivendell. Rivendell looks so beautiful and I feel like it would just, I could do with that now. Just sort of sitting around all that nature and just eating yummy food and just listening to all that music and just the peace of it. I could do with the peace of that. So Rivendell, I'm very envious for, very envious of anyone who goes to Rivendell. The second book I'd have to mention here is The Name of the Wind, though, by Patrick Rothfuss. And the reason for that is because I'm actually just envious of Patrick Rothfuss. I would love to write like he does. I mean, you've basically got a massive book that follows a character who at times is quite infuriating. He makes very stupid decisions. You get quite annoyed at him at times. And there's not much in terms of plot, really, but it is the most beautiful book I have ever read. The writing is just so superb, and I can't even comprehend the skill that Patrick Rothfuss has, and I'm envious of it. I'm envious. And prompt number 6 is a book that scared the pants off of you. Well, I don't read a lot of horror. And I have to admit that horror books do not scare me. I don't really get scared. I can feel uneasy and I can feel a little bit spooked at times, but it really takes a lot for it to scare me. If anything, I just feel a bit tired when I read horror. So I've had to really think about this one. And I think the book that probably scared me the most has to be The Shining by Stephen King. There are some seriously creepy moments in that, and it's certainly not a book I could read at night on my own. So I think that's probably the closest I can get to really scared. And prompt number 7 is a book that bored you to tears or put you to sleep. And I am ashamed at this response. I'm ashamed. And I have to say The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. And the reason I'm so ashamed is because The Lord of the Rings is my all-time favorite novel. I love The Lord of the Rings. I love Tolkien's writing. I love The Hobbit. But The Silmarillion, I just could not get through. I just couldn't keep track of the characters. I found it incredibly dull and I was bored. And I think that says more about me than The Silmarillion. And I do really want to read it one day. But so far, that is the book that bored me a little, even though I'm ashamed to say it. Prompt number 8 is a super steamy book. I don't read steamy books. I don't read romance. So it's quite rare for me to come across a particularly steamy book. And probably the only book that was super steamy, if that's what you're looking for, is a book I actually didn't finish. I DNF'd. And it's Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. And I kind of just stumbled across this on a Kindle deal and started reading it. And it's basically about a group of women who get abducted by aliens and then they end up crashing on this planet. And so one of them goes out to try and find help. And she comes across a hunky alien who has particular endowments. And yeah, it is very steamy. And I just didn't find it particularly plot driven. And I got a bit bored of it, I have to say, and I didn't finish it. But if you're looking for a super steamy book, Ice Planet Barbarians is a recommendation from me. And prompt number 9 is a book that inspires or motivates you to be your best self, to grow and or to change. And for these, I have two. I have 2 of these. The first one is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And I think I read this just at that time where I kind of was questioning my choices in life. And this book is all about choices we make. And there are some trigger warnings, so do look them up before you read this book. but it does start with a woman who's suffering from quite severe depression and has decided that she no longer wants to live. And she gets stuck in limbo in this library at midnight. And during her time in this library, she gets to explore all the choices she regretted in her life. And I just found it an incredible exploration of the what ifs of life. And I found it really inspiring about, maybe we need to kind of be kinder to ourselves about the things we regret, about the things we didn't do or the things we did do. And because we can't possibly know how they would have turned out. So even something that you might think would have been a better choice for you at the time may have actually ended up catastrophically. So I just found that book incredibly poignant in that. And I think particularly for anyone who's having any kind of midlife crisis, quarter life crisis, any sort of regrets, any sort of questioning the meaning of everything they do, I highly recommend this book because it really does inspire you to look at life differently. The second book I have to go to is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And this is by Becky Chambers, and it's a really feel-good sci-fi book. And it's a group of found family effectively on this spaceship, and their job is to go and tunnel to make wormholes. And it's just beautiful because you do have a plot that's actually happening, but the majority of the book is really exploring the relationships between these people on this ship. You're looking at beautiful friendships and love and just looking out for each other and even looking out for people you don't particularly love that much. And to me, it was just that idea that it's a book that would make me want to be my best self, because within this you have such tolerance and acceptance and forgiveness and just unconditional care for your fellow sentient beings. And it just warmed my heart. And if I could be like anyone, I would like to be like some of the characters on this ship. And the 10th and final prompt is a book that makes you nostalgic. And for me, that has to be The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this is good because I redeem myself, right, for finding the Silmarillion boring. The Hobbit makes me feel nostalgic. I love The Hobbit so much. I first read it when I was quite young, and I used to read it with my dad, and I love that. And I remember reading it with hot chocolates and all sorts of yummy warm drinks. And I just loved the story. I loved the fantasy, the escapism, the characters. And I always just have this a little warm feeling in my heart when I reread or even think about The Hobbit or talk about The Hobbit. And so for me, that is ultimate nostalgia. So that's it for the All the Feels book tag. Thank you for watching. Let me know which books have made you feel all the feels. And please subscribe if you like my channel. It does give me a little boost. And may the books be with you until next time.